Okay, hello. I am so excited to be here with the Thom, who is an incredible leader, an incredible inspirational thought leader, and has worked with royalty, military, top CEOs, executives from all over the world, and really help them step into true leadership. And we're talking about healthy leadership where they're able to guide their team, their organization, their company to massive levels of success and wholeness and peace and really socially responsible ways moving into the next century and competing in a ever-changing planet. So I'm super excited to have you here. We're going to have a conversation about masculinity and femininity, how it plays out in the workforce. And I'm excited because I've just admired your work and everything that you do and just your energy for so many years since I met you a couple of years ago. So welcome, Thom. How are you doing this morning?
Thank you, Trez. Thank you. You're very kind in your words. Let's not forget your own standing in the world and the book that you've just published, which I guess forms a lot of the basis of your thinking now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good to be with you.
Thank you very much. I just realized I said good morning, but it's evening your time because you are in England. And yes, my book. So I just thrown out there for those who don't know, I do have my book that just came out, The Modern Woman: Discover Your Inner Sweet, Sexy, Badass Queen. And it's a true book about balancing the masculine and feminine energies in women. And there's really a direct counterpart for men. And so we can take the information and directly correlate it to men and stepping into their own masculine and feminine energies. So why don't we dive in? So I know you talk a lot about masculine energy. Give us some context and what are you finding right now with men in the workforce, with leaders in the workforce, with masculinity? Let's start with what are you finding, and then we'll dive deeper into that.
There's lots of things, really. I think the first thing is that it's not a subject that many men want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And so that makes it difficult. Mm-hmm. And I think some men would say, well, why would I talk about this? What's the problem? Mm-hmm. And it's kind of paradoxically put up in opposition against all the press, which talks about misogyny and men who are behaving really badly in organizations, particularly around their attitudes to women. Mm-hmm. And so I think that this is a whole conversation that calls for courage, and it calls for a willingness to explore subjects that typically you just don't want to look at. But I mean, here we are. This is the weather is behaving in ways that climate scientists have been predicting for a long time, and yet so many people are really rather surprised at the extremes. And it's the same kind of thing. People haven't wanted to talk about this because it threatens the status quo, and in just the same way, an awful lot of men who've got to the top of organizations, how much they make good noises, actually would be much more comfortable if the women were at home caring for the home, which is how an awful lot of men who are in senior positions think today. The younger generations, they have a different mindset, but they're not actually in the positions of power that they need to be. So I don't know. I mean, I could go on, but I think that there are some positive people. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's negative on this, but if you look at C-suites around the world, I mean, it does vary a great deal depending on the country. You know, it's funny if you look at some sort of countries like Rwanda, their government has got about 60% women. So that there have been a lot of women in positions of power. You know, the World Bank, the EU. I mean, there are a lot of large organizations that are headed up by women, which is fantastic. But still, there's an awful lot of men that, even if unconsciously, they think, I just would rather this was a man's world.
What specific behaviors are you seeing within the culture, the organization?
Well, just like there's a lot of greenwashing, there's a lot of whatever washing it is. I don't know. There's been a bit of a backlash in the last couple of years. There are now less women in C-suites than there were, I think, 2 years ago.
Really?
Percentage-wise. So there has been this pushback. You see it. I mean, you see it in the States. I mean, goodness gracious, you see it in the States with the sort of political right that is looking for ways to get, you know, make the country great again. Well, according to when? According to about 50, 60 years ago. And so and you look at Hungary, Poland, even this country, the United Kingdom, there have been sort of patriarchal pushbacks. But I think in any systemic change of this significance, you're going to get that kind of no linear is change, no change is linear. So we've just got to keep pushing on. Yeah, there are some really positive C-suites around, C-suites largely consisting of men who are saying this has got to be changed. We need, I think there are some, I mean, McKinsey's have done all sorts of studies and they keep coming out with numbers that if you have a more balanced leadership team, you get better results.
Oh, absolutely.
Better results, you make more money, which for most people is what's motivating. And it's interesting that in spite of that, there's still an awful lot of resistance.
Hi, so you said there's less women in C-suites today than there were 2 years ago. What's changed in the last 2 years? Because I would think there'd be a trend going one way or the other.
Well,
consistently.
It's a pushback. Well, I think you know, I part of this is men being uncomfortable and then making decisions that make them more comfortable. But also, I think there's some women who would say, I don't want to play this game. I've done this so often or so long, and it's tiring. I mean, the number of women who've become quite senior in STEM, you know, the sort of engineering type areas, that I've seen so many of them get so far and they're highly qualified, and eventually they go off and they become nutritionists or they become yoga teachers, because actually it's just so much more fulfilling than trying to battle in an environment which was designed by men for men. So I'm not saying all is lost. I'm saying that this is a change curve that has ups and downs in it. So we've got to keep pushing, because there is no question that we need feminine wisdom in the leadership of organizations. And by feminine, I mean the feminine in men as well as the feminine in women, which also is a bit of an issue because there's an awful lot of women who've got to very senior positions by, this is my own view, and I think it's controversial for some people, but they've done it by losing or suppressing parts of themselves in order to conform and be seen as acceptable in a male-dominated environment. And that's just plain sad.
So it's interesting you say that, because I was actually speaking recently, and there was a woman in the audience, and her daughter, so she was asking a question for her daughter, who's an engineer, and she says she has the toughest time because she's in this firm with all men, and she refuses to be in the boys club, she refuses to go golfing, she refuses to do the, you know, the socialization, I mean, just all of that. And she, you know, she's just getting very discouraged. And I don't know if that, you know, my answer, you know, just because I'm a big proponent in relationship building is number one. And women, we're all tribal creatures. Women know how to bond with women, men know how to bond with men. And now we're needing to come together and bond with each other. And I'm a big proponent in kind of matching the energy. You know, every time I've been, you know, and I've had businesses, I've had jobs, I've had, you know, I've been leadership roles. Every time I've come into an organization, I've always matched the energy of the organization. And then having had that rapport with the group, with the people, then I can shift it and change it. And I wonder if that's where people are missing, is they're going in there, holding on to their attitudes, their beliefs, their ways of doing things, and wanting to strong arm everyone else into shifting into their way versus going in. And this is the advice I gave her is she has to develop relationships, learn how to golf, hang out with the boys, you know, go into the water cooler room and find out what everyone's talking about and join in the conversation. And that way, when you can break those walls between you and all the men, and they start to let you in, then you can show off your prowess, because she's incredible. But now she's starting to hold back on her work and what she's able to do. So she's not willing to work as hard because she's taking it personally. Versus, you know, if I go into a different country, I'm not going to stick to my language. You know, I'm going to try to have a dictionary or my phone and assimilate into, at least show that I have, that I'm trying to fit into their culture. And then once I have that relationship, then I can bring myself, you know, into it. I wonder if, what are your thoughts on that? Because it can be threatening to have someone who's different. And if it's a boy's world or a man's world, and they've got all of a sudden women, you know, and they don't know what to do. So in essence, they are, I would say, acting more out of fear than anything, you know, fear. And again, I don't know, you know, you're the expert, so you tell me, but I would imagine they're acting more out of fear. Also with we have the whole Me Too movement. They don't want to be, you know, there are real threats, you know, being alone with a woman in a room, you know, in an office, and threats of accusations and things like that. So it puts them on the defense. And having someone come in, fit in, you know, at least attempt to assimilate into the culture, and then changing it. What are your thoughts on that?
Boy, have you opened up a big box there. Oh. You see, I hear a lot of women, younger women particularly, saying, why the hell should I compromise? Why do I have to behave like a man? Why do I have to learn to play golf? Why do I have to go and drink beer just to be assimilated, just to be acceptable? You know, I often talk about the huge drive that we all have, this need to belong. And so how much are you prepared to compromise yourself in order to belong? Now, you essentially what you're advocating is a kind of match and lead, or pace and lead. I'm sorry, it's the right term, isn't it? But I think.
Because here's to me, when you talk about ethical influence, that's what we have to do as a parent, as with our spouse, with our bosses, with our coworkers, with our employees. There is you talk about match and lead, absolutely, and there's ethical influences. People want to know that they are being understood, that you're not coming in and steamrolling through everything. And we have a lot of leaders, male and female, that will go into an organization. I know one in particular, they've got a new president, and all of a sudden they're just coming in, and I've had this experience where a leader just came in and just steamrolled through everything and didn't even get a chance to, or didn't even give them an opportunity, take the opportunity to get to know people, to get to know the culture, to find out what are their strengths, what are the weaknesses, what's working here, what can I acknowledge? And that, and I think that gives you a lot more power as an influencer if you can do that.
Yes, you're right. Of course, you're right. But, and there's a big but there, that in your description before, there's no compromise being made by the men. And just because they're in the majority, I don't think gives them the right to say, this is how it is around here. Either you conform or you don't fit. And on top of that, you have all the male-female dynamics that overlay this. So that actually, for a single woman like that, being in what has been an all-male environment is incredibly scary. So that calls for the men to respect that. It calls for them to actually think, right, we're all going to play golf. Does that make sense? Now that our team is different, maybe we could be doing something different. How can we, the men, help this person assimilate, as opposed to her doing all the work and us carrying on as if nothing has changed, because something has changed. So, in a sense, what I hear you saying is, I mean, at one level, it's feminine wisdom. I'm not going to rock the boat here. I'm going to just slowly edge my way in a way that doesn't incur conflict, but actually will win out in the end. And it might, and it might not. Over here, there's a number of women who've been in the fire service for years and have never been assimilated. And they've all got horrific stories to tell about misogyny and harassment. So, I think they would all say, well, I did my best, but they never did accept me. And there is a mindset along in a lot of male-only environments, and the police are like this, the fire service are like this, and by golly, the government is like that. It's certainly in this country, and there is this kind of resentment that a lot of these groups hold because their boundaries have been broken and they don't want it.
Mhm.
They actually do. They want to go off and play golf and go and have beers and misbehave and everything else.
Mhm.
And having many types of women will actually cramp their style. And if a
Right.
woman really mixes in and becomes part of the group, what's that program? Yellowstone.
I
I
haven't
don't know.
watched it, but I know it's very popular.
There's a couple of women there who are horse hands,
Mhm.
and they are as rough and tumble and I don't know what the word is. I'm avoiding masculine and all that stuff. It's just
Mhm.
they behave in the same way as men that have never been regulated in any environment.
Mhm.
And so they fit in, and actually they scare the men
Mhm.
on the whole,
Mhm.
because they have, on top of that, their ability to bring in their sexuality, which is an enormously powerful weapon, tool, I don't know,
Mhm. Yeah.
in that. But of course, at that stage, we're really talking about, I mean, I don't know what word you want to use, unhealthy feminine,
Yeah.
as well as an unhealthy masculine. So what we're talking about is a really difficult problem. It's a
Mhm.
really difficult problem. But I don't think that women should make all the compromises there. I just don't think that's right. And I mean, the word that went in my head as you were describing is the men actually need to grow up.
Mhm. Yeah. And I do agree. And you said a couple of things that really stood out for me. One is to the effect of they need to be good hosts. If they have someone new coming in, they should provide a safe environment for them. And that's true masculine energy, right? And true masculine energy is being a protector. And it's you've got someone new, you're a good host, you're making sure that they feel safe enough to do an incredibly good job and to be able to contribute in a big way. And the other thing you shared is feminine wisdom. And so, it's interesting because I do a lot of coaching, business, executive coaching, personal coaching, and also relationship coaching. And I'll always tell my couples, I'm like, okay, I'm talking to you right now. So say I'm talking to the woman, I'm going to tell the woman what she needs to do. We're not dealing with the men, or your husband. I'm talking to you. This is what you need to do, because what's that word? It's tempting to say, well, he needs to change, he needs to do XYZ, and I'm like, but he's not in this room, we're talking to you. And then when I talk to the husband, it's like, okay, this is what you need to do, forget her, I'm talking to you right now. So in essence, I'm definitely not taking sides, but I'm a woman, and I work primarily with women. My book's all about women. So yes, I think women have a lot more power than they give themselves credit for, and they can affect real change. And let me ask you this, because this is something that I also see a lot, is the beauty of having such diverse network within an organization. I talk about innovation. True innovation is having people from different walks of life, different ages, different ethnicities, different genders coming in, because you're having different points of view. You offer different ideas. If you've got a room full of, I don't know, 55-year-old, Caucasian men, nothing new will come from that room because everyone thinks exactly the same. And so when you have different groups, you have people that think differently, that have different ideas. And so one of the things that I teach is again, the masculine and feminine energies for women. And again, I'm just speaking to women right now. Is when you're at work, yes, you're on masculine mode, so to speak. because to me, masculine energy is producing, creating, affecting something outside of you, making things happen, setting goals, working, towards it. So there's a lot of masculine energy that they bring, but I also teach my women, don't neglect your feminine nature, because that femininity bringing to the workforce is very powerful. That ability to create relationships, that ability to be open to different ideas, to be able to pull out information from everyone to make sure that they're all heard, to be able to connect in a deep way and make people feel valued within the organization, to be able to see the big picture. Women are designed to multitask. They can hear the baby and hear the knock on the door and the phone ringing, all at the same time, and address all of them, versus masculine energy men are very hyper focused. So seeing the big picture, being able to juggle a lot of things at the same is their superpower. And also the softness. I truly feel that femininity is the loss of femininity is a huge problem as we move forward in our society. I think women feel like they have to compete in the man's world. And yes, we want to enter the world really for the benefit of all, but I think competition is a masculine trait. And so when women come in, I teach women, come in with your femininity, be soft, because men are not going to fight you if you're soft. If you come in as a man and you want to compete with them, they're going to put their dukes up because they're designed to fight. Women are not designed to fight. We're designed for connection, for community. And I think, as women come in, there's a demand. And this is where really, when I started writing my book years ago, 30 years ago, don't ask me why it took me so long. I was afraid to take it out or bring it out to the world for fear of being too, I want to say, traditional. But I had a boss, it was a large nonprofit organization, and we were running beautifully. The first day I started, our CEO was fired. So we ran like 3-4 months without a CEO, and it was just a beautiful organization. Everyone was working, extra hours. We had some incredible programs. I mean, we were just really a powerhouse. And so we got a new CEO. All of us are excited. We got this new CEO, as a woman from a different, area of California. And we were going to have this meeting where we were going to be, she was going to introduce herself to us. So we were just excited. We got this new, team member. And we all sat down. She sat down, and the first words that came out of her mouth, I'm going to make up the name. Hi, my name is Mary. You stab me in the back, I'll stab you in the gut. That was her introduction. And to me, it really spoke to the competition, to the threatening nature, to the ready for dukes up. And when you walk in like that to any organization with men, their dukes are going to come up. But you come in soft and friendly and oozing that feminine energy, and take your masculine energy into the production of your job. I believe there will be less resistance. And again, I'm just talking to women. Obviously, if I'm training the men, I'll say, hey, see the value that this woman is going to bring, and bring out your protective nature. And I would tell men that the reason why her dukes are coming out is because she's scared. Make her feel safe. That's your job. Protect her. She requires protection in your organization. So I know I threw out a lot. What are your thoughts on that? And I think particularly that coming in with masculine versus feminine energy. And again, I really feel that feminine, it's like women come into the workforce and they just want to be another man. That was that's the reason why I wrote the book as well, is that I wanted to be a man. I wanted to be the best man in the room, and it didn't work for me because I'm a woman. And so when I switched that and decided I can be very successful, I can be very confident, I can be very productive and efficient, and still be a girl. They're not at odds with each other. And that's a learning for me. And so What are your thoughts? I know I said a lot.
Well, I mean, the paradox in what you said, if we go back to your the daughter of the lady who was the engineer, is you were kind of advocating that she became a man to fit in.
It wasn't to become a man, it was to develop the relationships with the men.
Yeah.
She wanted
In
to
order to
go
do
in
that,
there. What's
she
that?
was going to, in order to do that, she was going to have to compromise herself, and you know, the typical journey there is that you lose the beauty of the femininity. So it is a very, very difficult thing. Now, I completely agree that when a woman comes in with that softness, in a lot of men, it will bring out the wish to protect. Not in all, because it's like, you know, when a woman is, I mean, you've seen it in the studies of the words that are used in appraisals. You know, where a man is described as holds his ground, a woman could be described as unreasonable or over emotional, or you know, whatever. I mean, you know, there is all this stuff that goes on all the time, and a lot of it is unconscious in men. So it's a difficult place, because so many men feel, you know, when a woman starts to cry, you know, now it's quite rare to see a man cry, but it could be out of frustration, it could be out of joy, it could be out of disappointment. Actually, it's an incredibly healthy thing the woman can do. Women are so much better at expressing their emotions than men. But when you put a man, particularly a man who's in charge, the manager in charge of this, he's got no idea, typically, not always, typically, no idea what to do with it. Because what it does is it takes them into a place of, you know, we are naturally empathetic. So it takes them into a place of emotion. And most men just go, no, thank you. I don't want the woman. So again, I come back to this thing about, I think a lot of men have got to grow up. And instead of trying to get women to conform, in this case, to no emotions, because we don't do emotions here, you can keep your emotions at home, kind of thing. Well, you know, it's very typical. One of the things that's really missing in organizations are men's groups. We've got groups for every marginalized group you can think of, and I include women in that. So there's women's groups all over the place.
Yes. And
some men say, well, what about us? To which the women tend to respond, well, you don't need one, you're in the majority. But actually, they do need it, and they need it to have it needs to be a safe space where they can actually explore not what the favorite beer is, or you know we talked about golf and that. No, this is about exploring my feelings as a man, and how can I be a good role model as a man for the young men coming into the organization.
Mhm.
And what is it like to be a man in a world where there are more and more women coming in and actually having positions of power? You've got to remember now, out of universities in the US, 65% of people who graduate from universities in the US are women. So what does that mean? It means there's a lot less men graduating. And where does that go? It goes into resentment, it goes into frustration, it goes into, what is my role? You know, I don't understand anymore. In a sense, men are at least as sensitive as women, but they don't feel the permission to express that in any way. Mm-hmm. But they need to. They need to. And today, more than ever before, they've got to have a place where they can actually unload.
Yeah. I love that. Is that what you do? Because I think that's an incredible concept. And very valuable.
We have the package. We're looking for organizations to work with it. Mm-hmm. It's not easy. It's not easy. You know, if you go in to a lot of organizations, they'll say, well, we don't need men's groups. You know, they're in the majority, but they really do need them. And you know, we have a package. It's great. Mm-hmm. And what is amazing is that if you can get men to begin to explore with each other in a safe space, you can get to a stage where, you know, in parallel, you can be doing something with the women in a similar facilitated space. But then when you bring them together, if you get the men who have become a little bit used to exploring things with themselves, mm-hmm. and getting some of this stuff a little bit more organized in their head and understanding themselves and what the reactions they're having, mm-hmm. and you get the women to listen to this, the women are blown away. They're completely blown away.
What are they surprised by? Yeah.
Because they are seeing men being vulnerable. And it's, A, it's so attractive, but B, it's so powerful. Yeah. And so, and then when there's enough permission, you can then get the women in the center talking about how it is for them, with the men listening, and all of a sudden you're beginning to create some ground on which we can grow new and much more adult relationships. But like all these things, it takes time. It takes time.
Yes, that should be in every organization.
Hallelujah. Yeah, well, you know, get in touch because we want to do this work.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wow. I could see that in organizations, in government, and military, and the police force.
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. But you've got to soften the edges first. Mm-hmm. And that's not a manipulative thing. It's actually a very healthy thing.
Mm-hmm. So what is your, I know you work with CEOs, leaders around the world. When you talk to a male leader, what is your approach? How do you address this? What's your conversation like initially? And I imagine if they're coming to you, they're already open to it. Or is that not the case?
Well, there's little point in trying to coach somebody who hasn't voted for it themselves.
Right. Okay.
Occasionally, I get put in touch with somebody who is a problem. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a problem. Sort him out. Well, yeah. What does he think about that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, so when you work with leaders and they want you to kind of transform their team, we'll call it, we'll look at it that way. So they're bought in, their team isn't. What's your What's your approach, or how do you open up that dialogue or that conversation?
Yeah, it depends on the context. Why are we getting together? Are they working well together? Are they communicating? Do they want to talk about their values, their purpose? There could be many reasons to come together. Quite often with teams are often put together in order to do a particular task.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're cross-departmental, that can be very interesting because they're bringing all the issues of each department together into one team. And that can be, well, it's great fun to work with it. And if it's not worked with, it can go very wrong. I mean, I think of drug compound teams in pharmaceuticals. These are teams that are put together. So you've got a statistician and a pharmacist and I don't know, a chemist and a salesperson. There are all these people that come together, and they've got to, if the drug is going to be successful and get through the various stages, they've got to work together really well.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes there are men, sometimes there are women, and in that sense, it's less about the gender, but it's more about the mindsets that people bring. And so I like to get those mindsets out. I like to create a safe space where people can express themselves and then be sufficiently open to hear disagreement, or frustration, or whatever it is that's coming out, because these teams are often under enormous pressure. With deadlines, and when they have to go and give a presentation. In the US, there's just one, the FDA, but in Europe, every country's got its own regulatory body. So they're having to rehearse, work together. They've got to be a really slick team. So I think that the bit that often we miss is, in order to create a team like that, we've got to create a baseline of, you've already described that baseline of relationship, of understanding difference and understanding self and what dynamics we bring into the room. And there's no question, normally when you have more feminine energy, which is typically brought by a woman, but not always, things go better. Because that feminine energy is much less accepting of a dysfunctional ego. And it's the egoic expression that is so damaging.
Yeah. And I would throw in the powerful feminine energy is less accepting, because the feminine nature is to, kind of, the unhealed feminine could be a doormat, could let things slide, to just accept the unacceptable. But a powerful feminine is like, no, that's not going to work. And in that soft way, this is not how we're going to do things.
Yes, and at the same time, the part of the feminine is listening.
Yes. I love it. Wouldn't it be fabulous if all organizations really owned that? I truly feel, again, I my parents moved to the United States for freedom and opportunity. So I'm a capitalist. I truly believe that the market will really help the and I know it's not always the case, but if you're doing the right thing, you're going to excel. And if you're not doing the right thing, eventually you're going to crumble. I wonder if those diverse organizations are the ones that are going to be successful in the next 100 years, that are going to make it through the changing climate in business and in our planet and in government everywhere, if that's kind of a requirement. So it would behoove, again, this is just my opinion, behoove all organizations to embrace. Right now we got DEI thrown everywhere, but really embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion is the path forward. So it's not just a nice to have, it's a requirement in order to stay relevant moving forward in the future, and in order to compete in this ever-changing world, in order to innovate and compete with AI and everything that is changing so quickly. You require things to be done differently, and in order to be done differently, you need to have new ideas and different energies. And the more diverse your group is, and what's more diverse than masculine and feminine energies coming together, you're ultimately doing yourself a favor.
Yes, and as I said, the statistics are very powerfully in support of what you're saying. I must say that DEI, I don't know. This is just it's just a thought that I have, and I haven't tested it out. But actually, of the three, DEI, I think for some organizations that's a bit indigestible. It's too much. But actually, if we focused on inclusion, the other two fall into place.
Yeah.
Because if you are truly inclusive, then it doesn't matter who that person is, we will do what's necessary to include them. If we are truly inclusive, this may be a bit more of a step, but if we're truly inclusive, then we will be treating people with equity. Equality is a difficult concept, I think, particularly between men and women. We're not equal. We're not equal. We're very different. But we can still be treated fairly and equitably. So in other words, you're doing the same job, you get the same pay, and stuff like that. But I think actually for some people, particularly men, this idea of equality grates, unconsciously. Yeah. And for a lot of women, it's incredibly important. But actually, I'm not sure it's the right battle.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
It's not about treating me equally. It's treating me for who I am and with respect. And actually, long may there be the difference. So, because what we need is a beautiful blending and bringing together of the best of the masculine and the best of the feminine.
Absolutely.
That's what we need.
I love it. I love it. And yeah, I love your perspective. It's as you're talking, I'm like, wow, yeah, I love how you put it. And in particularly inclusion, you're right. It's when people feel included, when people feel heard, that's when you have true innovation, growth, ideas. It's when they don't feel heard that people stop thinking for themselves. I've worked with leaders in organizations where, they're very heavy-handed, they're very directed, we're going to do it this way, my way or the highway. And then they wonder why nobody thinks for themselves. Well, it's because you've micromanaged so much that you've taught them, just do it your way. Don't come up with any ideas. Don't expand, don't think about, anything else. And you really do kind of shoot yourself in the foot. So, yes, inclusion is allowing everyone to have a voice. Everyone, and also top down. I mean, in every area of the organization, the mailroom clerk could have literally $1 million idea that will save the company a ton of money. and that person being heard can really add huge value to the organization. So yeah, I love your emphasis on inclusion. Thank you for that.
And I found myself reacting to a word you used there, because you said allowing everybody to have a voice. And the rebel in me immediately said, well, who's going to be doing this allowing? Who is it who's holding the power
Right.
that permits someone? And it's like, we need to change that mindset.
Absolutely, you're right.
This is deliberately creating a space where everybody has a voice. I mean, it's kind of interesting, because there's I mean, language, you know this better than I do. Language is so powerful, and every word has a depth to it.
Yeah.
And I think we've got to challenge ourselves a lot around this. You know, because and another thought that I had as you were talking then, is where does this resistance come from? It comes from fear.
Well, that's where toxic workplaces come from, right? It's from fear. It's a, you know, toxic boss or CEO, and yes, that's where they shut everyone's voice down. That's when they, you know, try to maintain the status quo. That's when they micromanage. That's when they're controlling, and that doesn't allow for growth. So yeah, it's the toxic workplace, and there are so many of them, unfortunately.
Yes.
Yeah.
So let's heal some.
Absolutely, absolutely, and help everyone thrive, because really it's a selfish gain, you know, when they do embrace these ideas and embrace inclusion, everyone will thrive. So I love it. I love it. Thom, this is so incredible. Thank you for your time for this conversation. Any last thoughts? And then tell us what you are up to and how people can connect with you.
You're kind. Last thoughts. What is required is courage. It's not about suppressing your fear, but it's actually having the courage to look into the face of the fear, because so often the shadow on the wall that looks like an elephant is actually a mouse. And we have to face up to that. And that's what we're here for. That's what you're here for. It's what I'm here for, is to help organizations see ways that they can transform and be so much more healthy. You know, and you use the word thrive. I always say organizations thrive when people thrive. So let's work to enable people to thrive in the environment, because the business will do better. That, you know, it's not brain, it's not whatever the word is. It's like, in some ways it's so simple, but it does require some determination, because, you know, I've worked in so many organizations where, you know, the life of the CEO as CEO is shorter than the project that we're working on. When a new CEO comes in, big ego, got to make an impact, they stop all the projects and start their own. And that is just such a waste of money. So you need commitment. You need commitment. And then you can bring about amazing change. So you ask what we're doing. We're, you know, we're working with organizations wherever we can, and we're very open to hear from people who would like to explore some of the concepts and the ideas that we've been talking about. And we've got a leadership retreat coming up in September. It's not long now, but really hoping to encourage some more CEOs, you know, leaders, to come and explore themselves in an amazing place, a beautiful place, and an uplifting place, and one where they can talk with people who are sort of facing similar challenges understand what's driving them and how they can really prepare to be great leaders for the future, because we need new skills.
Mhm.
I'm pretty clear what those skills are, but let's talk about it and explore. So contact me on LinkedIn or by email, Thom, Thom, at serenityinleadership.com, or look me up on LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you.
Beautiful. Awesome. Thank you so much. And just if you'd like to contact me, I'm Trez Ibrahim everywhere. So you can go to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. You just type my name. You can get my book on Amazon. Again, just put my name, Trez Ibrahim, and you'll find it. The Modern Woman, Discover Your Inner Sweet, Sexy, Badass Queen. And I do coach business owners, executives, entrepreneurs around the world on both personal and business matters. And you can kind of work with both of us, which would be incredible. Imagine having Thom come in and creating that dialogue between men and women, and creating a culture of inclusion and innovation and creativity and growth and vibrancy and great leadership. And I can absolutely work with your team as well. So thank you so much, Thom, for being here. Thank you for watching this. And please comment. Let us know what you received from this conversation, and also commitment for yourself. I think we threw out a lot of ideas, and I think it's really important as a lifelong learner to pull, okay, what is one commitment I'm going to make for myself and for my own growth moving forward in order to incorporate this learning into my life and make me that 1% better, which 1% better every day will allow you to, or create a place of truly standing out in your industry. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful day, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.
Hey, bye.